This is Fearless Leadership with Brendan Keegan, a production of Forbes Books. Conversations with leaders who provide valuable, candid insights from their journeys and share their secrets to what made them successful and fearless.
This week's Fearless Leader is Adam Contos, the former CEO of mortgage powerhouse RE/MAX and the author of the best-selling book, Start with the Win, Tools and Lessons to Create Personal and Business Success. Adam's not your typical suit. His self-discipline and work ethic stems from his background as a former sergeant in the U.S. Marine Corps and SWAT commander. Adam, welcome to today's podcast.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
When I kind of just introduced you there, I kind of mentioned you have a little bit of an unconventional leadership journey and coming up through the military. You've written books. You've been in real estate. Let's start with the Marines. Can you tell me about your time in the Marines and with SWAT, and how did that prepare you for corporate leadership?
I joined the Marines. I went to Marine Corps boot camp the day after I graduated high school. So while everybody else was trying to figure out what party they were going to, I was getting on a bus and going to San Diego to stand on yellow footprints and get yelled at. So it was an interesting eye-opener for me, but it was something that I needed. I needed to put some structure in my life, and I can't think of a better organization to do that than the United States Marine Corps. So once I went through boot camp and training and got assigned to a unit and things like that, I ended up in the Marine Corps Reserves, and I got into law enforcement at a pretty young age. My father and my grandfather were both in law enforcement, so it was really kind of a generational thing in the family. My brother's a homicide detective currently at another agency. So got into law enforcement, and I became an entrepreneur. I got bit by the entrepreneur bug. I started a couple of businesses and got noticed by a great leader and mentor who helped me into the corporate world.
Excellent. I like that. Now, when I was doing some background on you, I know we've worked together before on one of your podcasts. I came across, a Fortune magazine where you once told them, leading isn't a position, if you don't mind me quoting you, it's an action. So can you unpack that a little bit for me? So leadership isn't a position, it's an action. Right.
It's an interesting way of looking at leadership because a lot of people think that they're a leader. I want to have a leadership position, a leadership title. Everybody strives for this magical vice president title for some reason on their business card. But ultimately, it's not a position you end up in. It's what you do every day and the actions that you take, as well as how you live your life. And what that does is influence those that you lead because they will mimic your actions and activities in order to accomplish what you need them to accomplish in the business. So it's something we have to think about every day. You just don't go and sit in your office. You need to be doing something that demonstrates your leadership, both personally as well as professionally, because frankly, your business is only about an eighth of your life, and everybody will follow you and determine, do I want to be like this person, or do I want to discard this person from my direction in life as a result of your actions?
When you talk about an eighth of your life, do you mind just talking to me, how do you break people's lives up, work and family, and how would you put the pie chart of someone's life together?
I love this question. It goes back to the great leadership mentor and coach Paul J. Meyer, who came up with what's called the Wheel of Life. And then Darren Hardy ended up really pulling that apart in his journals, Living Your Best Year Ever, of how to look at your life holistically. And it boils down to, when you look at all aspects of it, it has to do with your family, your friends and the relationships there, how you manage your health, how you manage your finances, what is your faith like or your belief system like, all of those different parts. And then it comes back to, well, wait a sec, there's business here, there's work, but that's only one small chunk of it. And I figured out that if you believe in all of those other aspects as much as you believe in your career, you should have a holistically healthy and progressively successful lifestyle. So I came up with this phrase of how you do one thing is how you do all things. So if we look at all these different aspects of our life and we compare it to how we do it the very best part of our life, and for a lot of people, it's their business because that's where they pour their heart and soul into. Wait a sec. Are you putting that much heart and soul into the rest of your life. Because if you are, you should be happy, you should be healthy in your nutrition and your exercise and things of that nature. But you should also have wonderful relationships and a great looking bank account as a result. So you're looking for this to lead a life that is holistically healthy and happy. And that is only done by looking at all the different parts of it.
So I like the way you talked about living your best life and having the best year of your life. And I know in doing research, I think we both have a shared belief that what kind of helped jumpstart our careers was having a strong work ethic. And that kind of led to, some early success. And I came across where you say that work ethic comes from designing our lives around being the best we can for one another. So where did your great work ethic come from, Adam?
This is a great question. The work ethic that I was delivered growing up, it came from my father. I mean, such a wonderful man. He's 80 now, and he still lives this way. He lived with a very high standard of ethics. Thou shalt not lie. You are truthful with yourself and you're truthful with everybody else in your life. And what that does is that eliminates hiding from things. If you're straight up and straight on with things, you don't have to hide from anything and you can work to improve it. And if you focus on putting forth the energy, effort, and enthusiasm into that, you can do your very best at it. The reality is most people perform at about a 25% capacity, but super high achievers perform at 100% capacity or even close to that in the high 90s. I got that from my dad. If you're going to do something, do it right. And he always used the carpenter term, measure twice and cut once, but cut. Don't put it off. Go in and take the action necessary. So it was a combination of those factors, but ultimately it comes down to, are you willing to be truthful and honest with yourself and others and take the action necessary to get things done, as well as give the complete effort into that?
I like that. Yeah. When I was thinking of the question, myself as I had done, prepared for today, I remember it was the end of junior year in high school, and one of the rewards of being football captain senior year is you got a job that summer working at Nashua Beef Company in Nashua, New Hampshire. And that was a big deal because back then they were paying $10 an hour. I remember showing up the very first day, and the foreman, and looking back, I think he had fun telling you this. He said, "Hey, when you work here for the summer, you only work half days." I'm like, "That's great. I'm up for that." He goes, "We start at 4 a.m. and we end at 4 p.m. And, I look back at that, and I did it for 3 summers. I'll tell you, it was pretty tough. It was good money, but it was that work ethic that, that I also had from my dad. Interesting, you got it from your dad. That kind of got drilled into you at an early age. It was my first job, carrying sides of beef and boxes of beef and loading trucks. There's nothing glamorous about it, and you can't really slough it off. I mean, it weighs a lot of pounds, and you just got to move it. But I look back and if I could ever write that foreman a note, it would actually be a kind note. It wouldn't be, "Hey, you were tough on me as a 17-year-old." It would be, "Thanks for instilling, what a half day meant in a work ethic of you get 2 15-minute breaks and a 30-minute lunch." And so I'm always thankful for that first job. So
that's awesome.
So I want to quote something from your bio. He's a CEO, a volunteer police officer, a firearms instructor, a father and a husband, and in everything he does, he starts with a win. Now, I know that the Start with the Win is the name of your book and podcast, but for those that haven't had the good fortune of reading it or listening to it, can you tell us what the genesis of Start with a Win was? Like, where did you get started with that?
Sure. It's interesting. There's a couple of different angles that you can see in society that are approaching this way. Like when you look at, I don't know if you remember that graduation speech by the Navy SEAL commander who said, "Make your bed."
And I think he ends it with, "And even if you have a bad day, you come home to a made bed," doesn't he? At the end.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I love that. I love that. That thing went viral.
It totally did. And it's interesting because I look at life that way. Every time I wake up in the morning, it's and this sounds very cliche, but it's a blessing. I get to wake up. My phone turns on at it used to be 4:30 a.m., but since I retired as CEO, I've moved it to 5 a.m. And people were like, why don't you get up at 6? And I'm like, no, 5 is great for me. In fact, I wake up at like 4:53. And as soon as I get up, I have 2 German Shepherds. I get a cold, wet nose in the face and a nice good morning from my big boy Seymour. And I get up in the morning and I'm excited about the day because I get to do my best. And it's fascinating when a lot of people get up, they go, oh, I don't want to get out of bed. They hit snooze half a dozen times, things like that. And what they're putting off is opportunity. So it's a whole paradigm shift that one has to make in their head and say, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do something and I'm going to enjoy it instead of, do I have to get up? And it comes down to this philosophy I have of, am I going to do the minimum necessary today or am I going to do the maximum possible? And I look at when I wake up, in order to do the maximum possible, I'm going to take opportunity and I'm going to run with it. And that opportunity is I get to get up, go spend a little bit of time with my dogs before my wife gets out of bed at 5:30, and we go to the gym and hit it hard. I just love starting with different types of wins. And my first win is I go in and I let my dogs out and I put on a cup of coffee and I spend a few minutes with them and just enjoy my time with these fuzzy creatures that are wonderful to all of us. And then I get to see the love of my life. And she says, let's go work out. And it's starting my day by accomplishing different little bitty micro tasks that lead into macro tasks that lead into my business decisions, because I'm still in business. I'm at the office by probably 7:30 or 7:45. And I go to a different office than I used to go to, but I have a beautiful facility I go to and work from and invest in businesses and grow businesses. But if you start on the wrong foot and you start by having losses during the day, you don't want to get started, you're down in the dumps, you're giving the minimum necessary, how's that going to impact your business and the other people in your life? And I don't want to be around people who are miserable. I want to be around people who want to be better. So I choose to act that way so that I can choose to be around people that are that way.
I love it. So, I'm reading your bio. So I'm not a police officer or firearms instructor. I got the father and husband, the CEO, but I also got the 2 dogs every morning that wake me up at 4:45. And I got to tell you, those little guys are so excited for breakfast. You would think it's like they hit the lottery every morning. And sometimes I feel guilty. Like, do I not feed them enough? Because at 4:45, they're just crazy for food. Same thing. I do a little email and then I hit the gym and my wife comes down as well. So pretty crazy, a little bit of alignment there. But, I know for me, I hit the office with just a lot of positive energy and just a good, healthy vibe because I feel like I've had a successful morning. It's interesting. The little furry creatures kind of, at least for me, get me in a good mood to start the day.
What's interesting, Brendan, about this is that when you look at a lot of the super achievers in life, we see a consistent pattern of building upon successes each day. And you do it, and you have accomplished some amazing stuff and continue to grow in business, life, career, your progression in the media space, things like that. I mean, for crying out loud, why don't people notice this pattern? And it's not difficult. I mean, to get up and get excited and, like you said, grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or whatever and get started. There's nothing preventing people from doing this. And that's the interesting part about what call it the top 10% of achievers are involved in versus kind of everybody else who just lets life happen to them.
Well, I'll take a shortcut over here and just tell a little story. So on my way in this morning, I talked to one of our managers in the company. He's in a really big role for the company. And, a couple months ago when I was meeting with him, he had just said, as great a year as he's having, it's just really taking a toll. He just says, he seems tired a lot. And, I spent some time with him and I told him to flip his day. He was working till 11 or 12 every night. And I literally talked to him this morning on my way in, and he's now getting up every morning at 4:30. So, even earlier than myself. He's got a personal trainer at the gym at 5:30, and he's getting to the office at 7, and he's getting in bed at 9. And he said he's into it for 30 days. By the way, I didn't even know he was doing this until he texted me this morning a picture of the gym, and I said, "Oh, when did you start going to the gym?" And he said 30 days ago. So I called him after I got the picture, And I said, how are you doing with it? He goes, it's completely changed. He goes, I'm more positive with my family. I'm more patient with my kids. I'm a better listener in the office. And he said, I'm just generally in a better mood. And I think I'm more successful. I go, well, this all started because you said you were tired. He said, no, I'm not tired anymore. I'm going to bed earlier and I'm getting better sleep. So it's, there was somebody, and I'm going to put him, he's probably 48, 50 years old, and had just gotten in the rhythm of getting up later and working later. And he, working till, 11 or 12 after he put his kids to sleep and stuff, just at night. And I just said, hey, that's a tough lifestyle to keep. You're kind of always going to be burned out. You're not getting proper sleep. But it's real interesting hearing him this morning just talk about it. And so, I guess what I'm saying is I agree with what you said. It's him flipping his day and having those successive wins early in the morning carries him right into the office. And he just says, he's a better listener. He's more patient with his kids. So it's not just a business thing. It's truly a life thing.
Totally. And you pointed something out there that I'd like to shine a light on. And that's that he developed an awareness. There are three locations of awareness that everybody needs to be thinking about. There's awareness of self, there's awareness of others, and there's awareness of your activities, like your business, your relationships, things like that. And if it sounds like he just kind of opened his eyes to these things, he became ultra aware of what was causing these challenges in his life, and he took some action on them and saw the results. But everybody just kind of goes through life in that funk, and they're not aware of what they should even just try in order to go accomplish things. And you shine that light on them for them. So great job.
Yeah. So, hey, let's jump back to your book for a minute. Start with the win. One of the things you write about in your book, which, by the way, I love some of the language you use in your book, where you say, party with the beast, control your emotions, climb out of chaos and uncertainty into decisive action. So talk to me about this beast.
This is an amazing story that was taught to me by now late, great SWAT commander who I really idolized. He was a mentor of mine in the tactical community. His name is Bruce. And our SWAT team was getting ready to go on a very complicated operation. And we had a lot of brand new people on the team at that point. Bruce was present during the briefing, and he looked at me. He said, you've got some people that are getting in their own heads. Can I talk to them about that? I said, absolutely, my friend. So Bruce got everybody together, and he said, look, inside of all of us is a beast. That beast is our fear. It's the fear of the unknown. It's the future that has not happened yet, and it's what will stop you. It will cause you to hesitate. It'll cause you to misstep when you're supposed to be out there doing the tactical dance of raiding a particular property or moving with your team in a tactical manner to create safety and effectiveness. And what happens is all of us, even somebody goes to work at a bank, or somebody who just wakes up in the morning and maybe just works from home, who knows? You have these fears of unknown items happening in your life. And what those do is they get in your head and they take over. It's like on a sports field when the opposing player is heckling you and they're trying to get in your head in order to get you to misstep in your play, or, not do what you're supposed to do, or not give the effort you're supposed to give. That's the beast. And there are two options we have with this beast. This beast can sit on the other side of that door and scare us into inaction and misstep and overwhelm. Or just like when you're going someplace, there's somebody there you either like or don't like. If you like somebody there and you're going into that location, like call it a party, you're going to go look for your friend and you're going to go have a great time with them. But if there's somebody there you don't like and you show up at the party, you're immediately going in with the wrong attitude. Bruce said, we have to look at the beast and say, the beast is there for me to party with. So I need to decide, am I going to go in and let the beast fight me and slow me down and cause me to be overwhelmed and miss what I'm supposed to do? Or am I going to go in there? Am I going to have a great time and party with the beast? And I'm just going to flow with relaxation and excitement and joy. And even though we're dealing with these super, super dangerous, very overwhelming tactical situations, it's a dance. When you go into those places, you're in there to function just like a professional athlete on the field is functioning during a game. So if you look at this of, do I fight the beast or do I party with the beast? It totally changes how you look at the challenges you're about to face. So Bruce got the team together and everybody put their hand in the middle, and Bruce said, I want you to go in there and enjoy your time with the beast. We all put our hands in the center, and Bruce said, party with the beast. And we all said, party with the beast. And we went and did the job, and it went very, very well. So ultimately, it comes down to understanding your fears, doubts, overwhelms, and instead of letting those haunt you, you let those inspire you. Now, Brendan, an interesting thing about this beast, there was a movie made about this beast. It's called Monsters, Inc. And it was that fear it's seriously, you look at it, that Pixar movie, and you go, wait a sec, I had a beast when I was a kid. It was in the closet. It was the noises and everything like that. But ultimately, Monsters, Inc. realized, how do you party with the beast? And by the way, Bruce told me this story way before Monsters, Inc. came out. So this is kind of folklore in understanding our fears in our head. But ultimately, when people figure out that they can have fun with the beast instead of being afraid of the beast, they can get things done.
I like that. Whenever I hear the beast, I'm a New England Patriots fan. I go back to the Super Bowl against the Seattle Seahawks when Pete Carroll didn't run the beast, Marshawn Lynch up the middle and threw that pass across the middle that Malcolm Butler picked off. But I love this concept of the beast. And when you were talking about that, I'm not joking. I actually went to Monsters, Inc., where, this scary beast kind of got unscary as the movie went on. So I love that approach. I think that's something that more people need to kind of hear that story. So let me jump over to another topic. When you talk about master the winning approach and you talk about kindness and gratitude. So we've partied with the beast. We've talked about actions. We've talked about kicking off your day well. Now talk to me about kindness and gratitude.
This is an interesting topic when it comes to the difficulties of life and business, because we default to fear. And, the beast is fear. We always default to fear in life. There are ultimately two emotions that we function off of. And I know psychologists will go, no, there's 27 or there's, 112 or whatever it is. But the reality is there are two emotions, and you can identify these emotions very clearly when you see somebody or in yourself at the moment. These two emotions are fear, which we just talked about, the beast, which is overwhelm, it is doubt, it is excuses, it is rationalizations. It's trying to find a way out. And the other emotion is love. Love is unconditional giving. It's kindness. It's caring. It's not judging. It is witnessing what's going on and accounting for things instead of blaming for things. So when we take a look at what emotion are we in, what do we need to do while we are in that emotion is the next question. Now, the reality is when you go into call it a negotiation, when you approach somebody with something you're creating an accountability for or something like that, what do you see? You see that defensiveness, that fear that comes out. You cannot meet fear with fear. It doesn't work. Fear against fear creates fear response, which is fight, flight, or freeze. So if you start talking to somebody about something and you start hearing but this and that, and they're making excuses as a result of it, and but is a bridge to an excuse, by the way. So if you hear the word but or beginning of excuses or blaming outside influences, that's a concept called external locus of control, by the way. It's a psychology concept where they're blaming everything but themselves. And blaming yourself is just accepting what has occurred. So we can't allow fear to continue to meet fear. We have to use love to meet fear. The only way to meet fear is with kindness. Kindness is gratitude. It's thank you for your passion on this. I love how intense you are with this. Let's see what we can do with it. It is an approach of just, first of all, handing gratitude. Like I said, say you go up to the ticket counter at the airline and you watch the person in front of you, and Brendan, I'm sure you travel as much as I do and you've seen this happen. The person in front of you is just unloading on the ticket agent because there's a flight canceled, and that ticket agent has nothing to do with the cancellation of the flight or the weather. They're certainly not Mother Nature, and they have nothing to do with somebody putting gas in the airplane. So, you walk up there and you have a smile on your face and say, Thank you for what you're doing here. I appreciate your efforts. I'm sorry you have to deal with the challenges today. That's giving gratitude and recognizing their feelings. And instead of getting fear in return, you get love in return. And they're going, thank you. And they're willing to pretty much do they're almost willing to carry your bags to the airplane for you because they're so in love with your kindness. Kindness is a forgotten talent in this day and age where people attack first and then they appreciate last or not even appreciate. So I learned as a CEO of a company that instead of walking in someplace and just unloading in a meeting or banging my hand on the table or whatever it might be to try and get something done and intimidate your way through it, which basically is operating through fear, to look for the gratitudes that you can deliver and the kindness you can deliver in order to inspire people to get things done, because inspiration gets closer to 100% of effort and fear gets maybe minimum necessary because they're trying to find a way out of it. So why don't we use those gratitude compliments, that great opportunity to deposit in the gratitude accounts more than the fear efforts that so many leaders put out there? So kindness, gratitude, thankfulness, love, the emotion of love, unconditional giving will always get things done as a leader.
It's so true. It's so true, especially when you think of when you try building cultures in companies and you try impacting cultures in a positive way. Fear is just not an approach that is going to build great cultures. So you talked about your career. You talked about when you were CEO, and you recently walked away from RE/MAX after 19 years with the company. What was that decision like, and how does it feel so far? I mean, 19 years being there, being the CEO. What was behind that, and what are your thoughts?
I love this question. I get it a lot because people are like, whoa, you were on top. Why did you decide to make a shift right now? Ultimately, I had 4 record quarters of revenue, of EBITDA, and of EPS. And I'm like, okay, this is, wow. We're cranking. Obviously since then the housing market has really taken a step back, but ultimately that doesn't discount the fact that we built a great company that is still cranking. So ultimately I took a look at, I've been here a long time. I wanted to do some business with a great friend of mine, my mentor, Dave Liniger, who is the founder of RE/MAX. Him and his wife, Gail, co-founded the company in 1973. So they're hitting 50 years here in January. But ultimately, Sarbanes-Oxley, because it's a public company, Sarbanes-Oxley says that there is this thing called conflict of interest and also related party transactions. So I couldn't really get into anything financially or business-wise with Dave, and we wanted to do that. So I had made a plan ahead of time with the board of directors where I could step away, at the Q1 and move on to go do some things with Dave. Now, I still have a very close tie with the company. I do go to company events, the conventions and conferences and things like that. I'll be at the 50th anniversary convention. So it's in my heart and soul because there are 9,000 franchisees around the world and I'm great friends and I helped open many of those offices. So I'm very tied to the organization, but I'm not the CEO there anymore. I'm still a shareholder, but I love being out working with my friend Dave, and we're buying companies and growing them together on a private basis now.
Excellent. I like that. So, continuing to just follow your journey and what's in your heart. But you did mention one thing, how, the industry was on top and then it came down a little bit. And I think especially over the last 3 years, as we looked at COVID, then we've looked at supply chain and, depending on what you look at, could be staring at a recession coming our way. What advice would you give to people that have been on a roller coaster the last couple of years in whatever industry they're in, or are about to go on a roller coaster ride, maybe for the first time in their life? Maybe right now they're up and they're going to find themselves in 23 down. From somebody who's experienced the ups and downs in your career, what would be some advice you'd give to people that are going to experience some of these wild swings, roller coaster rides?
I love this question because there are a couple of ways you can look at this. Now, let's look at this before you get on the roller coaster or before you even get in line to get on the roller coaster. You need to prepare yourself. Cycles in business happen, and unpredictable cycles in business happen as well, as we saw with the pandemic. The pandemic brought all business to a screeching halt for a period of 1 to 2 months. Then everybody started to figure out a way out of it, and many businesses kind of hyper accelerated out of it. Others had to really transform in order to stay alive coming out of it. And many did a pretty decent job with that. The other pressures that were experienced are supply chain, manufacturing, getting supplies, as well as now the increasing interest rates, the cost of goods, the cost of fuel, consumer price index, things of that nature, as well as labor issues. All of these things are different challenges that occur in business. But if you sit there and dwell on those ultimately as, oh my gosh, we have a problem, this sucks, this is horrible, what do we do? You're not going to get any place, because then you're going to that position of fear. I mean, fear stops progress. Now, what's the only way out of fear? It's by taking action. Love is giving is action. So what action can we take in order to find the opportunities that exist here? A great way for businesses to think about this is, if you're not on the roller coaster, you should be planning to get on the roller coaster. So doing some scenario planning, some, kind of benchmarking, look at what if scenarios based upon your industry. Where are you? Where have you come from? Where can you go? And what can you do? This is where you look at that whole perform to transform type situation, where you're performing currently in your space. I can promise you your space is going to change with this economy, because somebody in your chain that you touch, not just supply chain, but customer chain or ancillary businesses, or just the vertical, or maybe a parallel to the vertical that you're in, is going to be impacted by something in the economy, the government, laws, or really invention of a new product or service. You need to understand what are your options and go experiment with some of those things and get into them before you're required to. Make your change when you can, not when you have to. And that's ultimately what it boils down to. Just know the change is going to occur. Don't radically adjust your business. A lot of the framework is awesome, but ultimately, adjust that framework so it continues to be awesome.
I like that. So, Adam, I can't thank you enough for your time today, your insight, partying with the beast, kindness, gratitude, love, giving. For our listening audience, Adam used to run a SWAT team in his previous career. He'd kick in doors, blow things up. He'd save people. And now, as a retired CEO of RE/MAX, in his professional life was completely different. But his approach remained the same. His goals were always to break down barriers and blow up conventional thinking and help as many people achieve success as possible. And I think to wrap it up, I just want to say he's a CEO, a volunteer police officer, a firearms instructor, a father, a husband, and in everything he does, he starts with a win. And that wraps up today's episode of Fearless Leadership. If you enjoy the show, and I hope you do, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you automatically get my new shows when they drop. Also, if you do have a minute, I'd love if you left us a review so more folks like yourself can discover the show. And remember, until next time, have the courage to fail and the faith to succeed.
This has been Fearless Leadership with Brendan Keegan. If you want to learn to live and lead fearlessly, go to brendanpkeegan.com. Fearless Leadership is a production of Forbes Books.